a real estate agent can also be a little bit of a teacher, a social worker, a therapist,
a counselor,
all of those things.
All of those hats. Yeah, I sell crockpots. I don't sell microwaves, right? And what I mean by that is if you're just trying to get like a quick sale or a quick zap.
And when you quit focusing on everybody else and the next new realtor and the next new HVAC company,
I really believe just in the concept of having like non-negotiables and what a handful of non-negotiables, whether it's in my family or whether it's in my business. There's a concept called delete, delegate, and double down. And so,
Wait, let's say that again.
Yeah,
delete,
delegate, and double down.
Okay. So how do you find a healthy boundary? Welcome to the Lasting Business Solutions Podcast, Indy's Launchpad to sustain business success, growth, and leadership. My name's Renee Lucas, and I am your host. You know, every business needs strong sales to survive. And I'm going to open up today with a quote from our guest. This is actually one of his favorite quotes. Sales is either the lowest paying job or the highest paying profession that you can have. We are going to dive into that. Now, let me introduce you to my guest. Andy Liechty is an Indianapolis real estate broker with FC Tucker Real Estate. Andy has been blessed with 7 awesome kids. He's married to a Proverbs 31 woman. He's chasing dreams and he's making deals. Andy, it's a good life.
It is, absolutely, Renee.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for that introduction.
Yeah, no, it's so great to have you here.
Happy to be here.
We are going to talk about sales, right?
Let's talk about it.
Man, every business, sometimes sales, people are like, ooh, I don't want to be a salesperson. I don't want to be in sales. You have to have sales to survive.
That's exactly right. And I will tell you, having 7 kids, that is like the training ground for sales, right?
Yeah.
So try to convince kids to do anything it's been a wonderful training ground for me over the years.
Yeah. You have to be good because they're going to be resistive. They're going to give you objections. You've got to overcome all of that with kids.
And they're some of the best salespeople themselves, right? In terms of their persuasiveness and their persistence. So it's been a good life. They have made me a better person, right?
You know, I always hear about kids who they turn into best salesmen when they want like a pet. Like, I want a dog, yes. I want a cat, I want a lizard, I want a gecko.
I've heard maybe all of those multiple times, right? So, for sure.
Well, Andy, tell us a little bit about your career with FC Tucker. Was it like a childhood dream to be a real estate agent, or like, where did you start?
My childhood dream was to be a running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that was my childhood dream, right? So, one of the things I tell people is one of the reasons why I know I'm pretty much living God's will for my life is like, this is something I would have never chosen, right? I feel like it kind of chose me. So,
sure.
If you would have asked, 23-year-old Andy what he wanted to do, it would have been, hey, once my football career is over, playing at a small NAIA school, I want to go back to my hometown and I want to teach and I want to coach, right? So I didn't do that. I actually stayed. I came down to the Indianapolis area, taught at Hamilton Southeastern for 4 years. From 2000 to 2004.
Okay.
And then really what happened was I came across some information. Actually, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I started to read. Great book, absolutely. So and I started to read it. Actually, it was New Year's of 2002.
Okay.
Because I was up in Chicago at one of my buddies' house having fun on New Year's, and the next day when we were kind of hungover, to be honest, I see this book on his end table, and I start reading it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I could do this, right? I could do this. So that really just kind of started me on this journey of like, wow, what would it be like? And so I actually bought my first piece of investment real estate in 2002. And that really just kind of launched me to learning more about just real estate in general. I never really wanted to be a realtor. I wanted to be a teacher. I loved teaching. But at the time I was 25 and single when I bought my first piece of investment property.
Sure.
And that just became like more of a burning passion for me. So a couple years passed, I was 27, and I decided I'm going to take a year sabbatical from HSE and I'm going to become a realtor and just kind of see what happens. And one of the things I really believe about, and this is really, I think, a good tip for a lot of people, but I believe kind of in the power of a low risk idea. And one of the things that I did that was really smart to learn the sales game, right, which I know we'll talk about a little bit as well too, is like, the last student day that I taught, I closed on another duplex where I lived in one side, I rented out the other, and I also had a roommate. And I was living for for $80 a month. That's what it
Wow.
cost me to live, $80 a month.
Wow.
And one of the things that I tell people is, as I said, that put me in a position that in order to be successful, I didn't have to like go and set the world on fire. I could learn the science of sales, right? And the psychology of sales and the market and how to really serve people. Because being a teacher, my heart and selling is really teaching and serving, Renee, right?
Okay, I was going to say that there is a lot of teaching in sales. I remember when Travis and I sold our very first home and we're buying a new home.
Yeah, for sure.
I cried a couple times throughout, and I was like, I felt like a real estate agent can also be a little bit of a teacher, a social worker, a therapist,
a counselor,
all of those things.
All of those hats, yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
because there's a lot that when you're working with your clients, they don't know, and so you're teaching them along the way. And then there's all sorts of things, like look at interest rates. Even you went in a relatively short amount of time from interest rates being 2 and 3% up to 7%.
Yep, absolutely.
And so you had a major market shift, and so then you're really teaching society really on what that looks like, how the market's different, what that means. Do we buy, do we sell?
Absolutely. Yeah. And really, and along those lines too, taking it that direction, opportunity is two sides of the same coin, right? Mm-hmm. And so just when rates are low, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Well, it depends on what side you're on.
Right?
Yeah. When rates are high, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Depends what side you're on, right? And so it's really learning to be able to, number one, I think lead with empathy, right? And that's where the teaching and the serving comes in. But it's also having people, helping people see things from a different perspective, and really kind of taking the long game. When it comes to real estate or with anything that you're selling, right? What is the right long-term solution? Well, one of the things I tell people is I sell crockpots. I don't sell microwaves, right? And what I mean by that is if you're just trying to get like a quick sale or a quick zap, just like when you're hungry, if you want something quick, you can zap it in the microwave, and it may warm it up a little bit, and it may be okay. But if you're really hungry and you want something that's really nourishing, that's really sustaining, that will really be just a real blessing for you, you're gonna put a lot of the good stuff in the crock pot. You let it simmer, marinate, and that's really gonna be a more satisfying, fulfilling, healthier way to go about it, right? And so that's really kind of the mindset, when we're talking about sales and business. That's the mindset that I kind of try to take. That I don't sell microwaves, I sell crock pots. And what is the right long-term solution? And how can I help my clients recognize the opportunity and the long-term approach there?
So Andy, let me ask you this: when you were starting your career, and so thinking about this, like you're in your 20s, right? Sure. And so experience is limited as you're learning. How did you develop this mindset of like the psychology of sales and really understanding how people buy rather than just going in and trying to do a lot of transactions? Yeah,
absolutely. So I think a lot of it came from, because I started with investing, that kind of has a patient mindset right away, right? But I didn't want to be a realtor. My realtor, who is also the manager at our office now and is still a great business partner of mine in our investment deals, Aaron Starr, when he asked me if I would be interested in maybe switching careers and becoming a realtor, I didn't know how realtors got paid. I told him, I said, hey, you're asking me to give up something that I'm good at. And I feel like I'm making an impact in kids' lives, right? Yeah. And so I was really nervous about doing that. I didn't want to be in people's houses on Sunday because I wanted to watch football, right? And so I didn't know how realtors got paid, but I just knew that I wanted to serve. And I came across Buffini & Company as a longstanding real estate coaching company that really teaches how to work by referral and how to build relationships. Okay. And I was just going to just invest in homes and see how I did in my first year. And if I made enough money, great, I'd do that. Or if not, I'd go back to teaching. I went to hear Brian Buffini speak in Chicago in 2004. And 2 hours in, I told Aaron, I said, if I can sell like that, I'm totally in, because it really aligned with who I was as a person, as a teacher, as somebody that wanted to serve. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I can be authentically who I am and not just try to, schlep real estate on people, right? And just try to just make a deal, right? Because that wasn't in my heart. That's not what I wanted to do. If I was gonna work with people, I wanted to serve them in the best way possible.
I think that's really interesting because I know a lot of people, people that get into real estate because they think it's easy.
Yep.
Right. And all I'd have to do is sell a couple houses a year and I make so much in commission that I'm just going to be set. Right. And just like anything else, it doesn't matter if it's real estate or not, it's not easy.
That's exactly right.
And
That's exactly right.
And I would imagine that if you're selling anything and it's just transactional, and you don't have a deeper purpose, that purpose to serve others, to understand others, to help others achieve their dreams and their goals.
Yep.
I would imagine you'd get to some burnout pretty darn quick.
Very much so. Right. And really when you take that approach, even from a statistical standpoint, it's a more expensive way to do business. On average in businesses, it is a referral or a repeat customer is 6 times less expensive than acquiring a new client or a new customer. And really, there's this great book that was, I think it was in the 1890s, if I remember right, when it was written, Acres of Diamonds, and it talked about Russell Conwell, who actually founded Temple University.
Okay.
He actually founded it by giving speeches, and his whole thing was like, you have all you need underneath your feet, right? And a lot of times we think we have to go be something that we're not. We think we have to go out there, and our answer for wealth or success or happiness is out there. It's not. It's right in front of us, leveraging and serving the relationships that you have. And one of the things that I tell people all the time, I'm like, at the end of the day, real estate or not, my job is to be a light and to serve the people that God puts in front of me to serve. And sometimes that leads to real estate transactions. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's okay, right? You kind of gotta hold it with an open hand, right? And if you hold it with an open hand, what tends to happen is, and another reason why it's a great way to do business in this relational referral type way is that, it requires you to have faith, not just faith in God, but like faith in yourself, faith in people, and also faith in the law of the harvest, that like, if I do good somehow, some way, maybe not the way that I think, we were talking about that earlier, right? Maybe not the way I think, but if I go and I do good and I'm a light, it will come back.
It's
right?
bountiful. It's funny because when 9 years ago or so, we cut our business in half and started over again. Yep. And we had, so I love what you said about going to that coaching seminar so early on in your career. It took Travis and I 10 years to do that, you know? And so I really admire people who recognize how important that is and they jump into that right away. So kudos to you. It's a huge tip to take away. Yeah. So Andy, we're both in industries, real estate and in the trades, HVAC, where people, they're not buying what we have to offer every day.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so you might work with somebody who buys a home and they stay there for 20 years or, even 5-7 years before they move again. We're the same way. I mean, there are a lot of people who in their lifetime replace 0 to 1 HVAC
That's
systems.
Exactly right.
Right?
Yep.
And so we have very similar philosophies about building relationships and serving people versus transactional and move on, acquire the next new person, right? How do you keep a relational mindset when you might only be working with these people once or twice in their lifetime?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is just almost your personal philosophy and what you kind of personally value, right? And that kind of goes back to what I mentioned before. Like, my job is to be a light and serve the people that God puts in front of me to serve, right? Yeah. And so, because I view it that way, I'm not trying to transactionalize them, right? But as a business owner, I'm also being strategic enough that, like, if I do good and people know who I am and they know that I'm eager to serve, that one of the things that I tell my clients, I'm like, listen, I measure my success in 2 ways. Number one, that I'll serve you. I show them a list I have over 200 testimonials. So I show them like some of the testimonials and I say, listen, my goal is to serve you in such a way that you will be comfortable and you will be eager to write a testimonial just in the manner that I served you. And the second thing is that when you have a friend or family member or a colleague or somebody that you work with that is looking to buy or sell a home, I would just love an introduction to them, or I would love you to share my Facebook page, or I'd love you to share my YouTube channel with them, and just kind of getting that good content out there then, and just kind of setting the thought process of like, hey, I'm here for the long haul. One of the jokes I say to my clients is, I come with the house, right? And don't have to babysit my kids or anything like that. But what I tell them is I'm like, hey, if you need an HVAC company, call me. If you need a good roofer, call me. If you need a good babysitter, call me. Right. right? And so becoming kind of that hub in the wheel, right?
Yeah.
Like where they feel like I'm somebody that, reliability in today's age is a superpower, right?
Oh my
like
gosh.
it really is. Like just doing, but if you can just be reliable and be a person of value, and they know what you do, at the end of the day, that ingratiates you to be able to have fertile ground for referrals, right? And that's really kind of the strategic the tactical mindset behind that.
It's funny because we both do a lot of networking.
Yep.
And the philosophy behind the networking that we do is that givers gain. You give first and you will gain from it, right?
Exactly right.
And so it's the same way, when we cut our business in half and started over 9 years ago, it was kind of the same thing. It was scary.
Absolutely.
It was really scary. And we really shifted our scope of work and our business plan and everything. But when you keep people first and when you keep a servant's heart and when that is your goal, the work comes, the results come, right. They just do. And people will say, but how? They just do.
That's exactly right.
It's bountiful. That's what givers gain is.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and I think from a business standpoint, one of the things that is really true is that, like, if you want to make your business big, you have to make your focus small, right?
Yes.
And when you try to be everything to everybody,
you're just average.
You're just average. That's exactly right. And that's one of the things too, where, like, I consider my business, I don't have competition, right? And because that realtor on the other side, they have their sphere of influence, they have their business, they have their path.
Right.
If you're good at what you do, there's plenty of business for everybody, right?
One of my very first mentors said that to me. She invited me to her shop and showed me like, this is who I use for this and this is who I use for this. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're competitors. She was like, no, we're not.
Yeah.
She was like, there's enough work for everybody. And when you quit focusing on everybody else and the next new realtor and the next new HVAC company, and you continue to focus on yourself and how you're serving, big things start to happen.
That's exactly right. Now,
Andy, let's pivot for a minute because you have a pretty incredible family, right? Like, you have a big family, you have a lot going on in your personal life.
I have the best sale I ever made was get my wife to marry me. So, and she is a gem. She's a Proverbs 31 woman, as you said.
Yep.
So, and that's kind of how I define Holly, right? And so yeah, I definitely tell people the two immutable truths in my home is that we're never bored and we're always tired. So,
so tell me, how do you set boundaries when you have a philosophy to serve others, right? And we're talking in business sometimes, and we've experienced it, right? We can cross kind of a line to where we sacrifice ourselves or we might sacrifice our family to serve. And so how do you find a healthy boundary in your personal and work life?
Well, you know what? I do think balance is kind of a myth and a fallacy, right? So I don't really believe in balance. I believe in balancing, right? Where in some seasons of life, it may be a little bit more leaning toward the business, and some business life maybe a little bit more leaning toward the family. But I really believe just in the concept of having like non-negotiables and what a handful of non-negotiables, whether it's in my family or whether it's in my business, that Holly and I have, or that I have in my business. And so I think when we know that, and you know who you're about, it really becomes pretty easy to kind of respectfully set boundaries. And my clients know that at the end of the day, all of us are trying to do the same thing. We're trying to work hard and provide for our families, right? And so I'm blessed that I have lots of wonderful clients that they really understand that, they're respectful of that, but they also know, at the end of the day, I get paid for performance and results, right? I don't get paid for even my time, right? And so my clients know that me serving them to the highest level is very, very important, but they know I can't be in two places at once. But they also know, like, if there's ever a home they want to see and I can't do it, I'll have somebody from my team, or I'll maybe even have another realtor from FC Tucker show them a house. I'll have, and so being able to leverage, right? There's a concept that I talk a lot about in our networking group when you're trying to grow anything, but there's a concept called delete, delegate, and double down. And so,
Wait, let's say that again. Delete,
delegate, and double down.
Okay.
And so what you need to do is you have to look at, like, whether it's in your personal life or whether it's in your business, you have to look at what are the vital functions and what are the vital tasks to those functions that you have. And you need to prioritize those out. And the ones that are the most important, you double down on those. If there's ones that maybe have to get done, but they don't have to get done by you, you delegate those down. Now, there's one that's not really necessary, then you just delete them. And so when you learn to kind of like focus that way, that enables me to run a relatively big business and run a relatively big family, I guess, too, right?
There's 7 kids. It's a big family.
Yeah, because the truth is that you can't do it all. But again, kind of what we talk about with business. If you want to have a big business, you have to make your focus small. If you want to have a family life, what are the non-negotiable things that you have to do to be able to make sure that we're all on the same page and rowing in the same direction?
Can you give me an example of like a non-negotiable?
For us, going to church as a family every week is absolutely non-negotiable.
So you're not going to be doing an open house on a Sunday morning because that is a non-negotiable.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Now, we're talking about delete, delegate, double down. I may delegate that task out, right?
Yes.
And if somebody needs to show a home and maybe say my kids maybe have a ball game or a wrestling match or something like that, that's something that I can delegate out, right? And then obviously when they need more of my expertise when it comes to maybe say writing the offer, things like that, so I really try to parse out in the whole delete, delegate, double down framework, like, and by the way, if I'm able to be there, I'm there.
Oh,
right?
100%.
But as I've told them, I've said, I still haven't mastered how to be in 2 places at once, right?
Yeah.
And so when you kind of lay that expectation with people, but they know that serving them is a top priority, right? And the reason it's a top priority is because it's how my kids eat. One of the things I tell people is my kids like food with their meals. And the other joke that I tell people too, people laugh when I say this, it's kind of funny, but it's kind of true, that I say, hey, all of the proceeds of my business go to feed hungry children.
Oh, so, I love it. Yes.
Yeah, my own, right? And so, but people understand and they respect that, right?
Yeah.
And so,
especially when you're upfront at the beginning.
That's exactly right. And as long as they know, like, hey, but that's not an excuse to not serve. That's a reason to serve you better. And so, how can I go about doing that, right?
I think, Andy, you've hit as well. In order to grow your business, you have to learn to do the delegation part as well. Like all of that. I really love that. That's something that I will keep in front of me. Yeah. Delete, delegate, double down.
That's exactly right.
The delegation, I think, is what so many people struggle with. Everybody wants to double down on everything, right?
Exactly.
And you talked about the focus is too big. How did you narrow down your business? I'll give you, so in our business, when we kind of restructured, a lot of it was area for us. So we were serving all of Indianapolis, all the suburbs, everything. And then we really looked at, okay, our shop is located on the northeast side of Indy. We can't always get to the far west side, Plainfield, Brownsburg, Avon. Like that was really far for us. And so we slowly stopped marketing out there. We stopped doing those things. And we really focused on area. What's a way that you really narrowed your focus in your business?
So for me, in my opinion, the most valuable part of any business, even you guys as a business with all your inventory and all of your great staff, the most valuable part of a business is the database, right? It is your clients. What is a database? It's not names, addresses, and phone numbers. It's a list of relationships. That is what a database is. And so what I did was, again, I doubled down into my relationships. And as I doubled down into my relationships and I, taught and trained them on how I work and what a good referral would be for me. For me, that enabled me, number one, to control costs because again, referrals are 6 times less expensive as a lead than than any other marketing or advertising that you do. But also too, it also connected with my value of my job is to be a light and serve the people that God puts in front of me to serve. If I'm borrowing somebody's trust with their referral, yes, I'll drive a little bit further. But what's interesting though is because the database is list relationships, 90% of my business, not only is it referral, but it's probably 85% of my business is Hamilton County in the north side of Indianapolis. Why? That's because that's where I live and that's where the majority of my relationships are at. Not all of them, right? And again, I'm happy to serve the people that God puts in front of me to serve. But if it comes from that kind of referral mindset, it was just doubling down into those relationships. I have non-negotiables in terms of, my clients will hear from me every month in the mail, a couple of times times with emails on their home anniversary. They hear from us every year. They get kind of an annual market update. We do a couple of client events every year where we're inviting people to do different things. And so I'm just kind of building those relationships. I'm meeting some of the people, weekly or monthly. So just diving into those relationships is really, a core part of what I do. That's one of the things that I double down on.
Something that I want to point out is every contact with your client brings value.
That's exactly right.
There's not one single time, and I think this is really important for business owners, that you said, hey, I'm reaching out to, offer a deal, offer XYZ, right?
Sure.
No, we're providing market values. We're saying congratulations on another year on your anniversary in your home. We're providing some sort of value for people. And I think it gets to the point, going back to the testimonials that you talked about,
sure.
When you're excited about something, you don't have to be asked to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure.
And so when somebody, it feels good. I know when I'm able to refer somebody that I trust, it feels good. It makes me feel
that's
really
exactly
good.
Right.
And then when that relationship is a positive one and it goes really well, I get excited about it all over again.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And it's not, and it's a positive circle or really a positive, really kind of spiral upwards. Right. And then really what happens too is you're able to bring your community closer together then, right? Especially when you do maybe client events or things like that, right? And so again, we've talked a couple times and kind of mentioned this, that if you want to grow a big business, you kind of got to keep your focus small. Whether that's geographic, that's obviously another way to do that as well too, or whether it's with your database. But at the end of the day, and talking about a referral kind of mindset, and this just came up, but I heard this from Brian Buffini, so I'm stealing it from him, my coach and mentor over the years. But whatever your thoughts are on religion and things like that, the greatest referral system in the history of the world was Christianity, right? And when you look at it, that started with one man and he had 12 people. And by the way, one of them was a jackass, by the way. So he took 11 people, but with those 11 people, because of how he poured into them and he served them, that reached the whole world, right? Now, obviously, what I do is not nearly as important as that, and I'm not comparing what I do. That what I'm saying though is Jesus could have poured into anybody. He poured into those people specifically, and the impact he had on them allowed them to go out and them to ultimately change them. And so when the magic of pouring into people's lives, right? It changes you, it changes them, and and you don't know the ripple effects, right?
Andy, you know what? And same thing here. I'm not saying that my business is the same as what you just said, but the concept of it, right?
Yep.
When Travis and I changed our philosophy, it used to be Travis and I were the business, right? And so we're the ones that had the relationships with all of our clients. And if somebody would call in and say somebody else in our business would answer their phone, they'd ask for me and Travis, right? Sure. And so at some point I was like, well, this is like Travis Heating and Air Conditioning, you know what I mean? But when we changed our philosophy and we really started pouring into the people that work with us, right? So our own team members, and we started investing in their training, and we started investing in them, and we started having a career path for them and helping them set goals. They naturally took care of our clients.
Yeah, for sure.
And so we look, as a business owner.
By the way, that's delegating, just so you know. Delegate,
I
double
love
down.
it. Yes.
Sorry to be the.
No, that's great. But that's one of those things is we learned that we didn't have to do it all ourselves.
Yes.
As business owners, so much we put everything. It's just like you said, you have this great team so that if you're here with your family, you have somebody that could be there because maybe they don't have the same non-negotiable as you, right?
Sure,
they
absolutely.
could have their own. It's different. You work really well as a team. And that's happened. It's been amazing for our business as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Now, to kind of wrap up here a little bit, we've talked about such great things. The two biggest things that I've taken away is grow your business, small focus, right? And then delete, delegate, or double down.
Exactly.
Man,
right.
I just love that.
I do too.
Let's talk really quick about ways because sales is not always win, right?
Yeah.
It can be very frustrating. And let's go back to your quote for a minute because we talked about how sales can be the lowest paying job.
Yep.
And so how do you overcome objections? How do you stay positive when, things, because I would imagine real estate can be a little seasonal, right? It can be hot, it can be low. How do you bring yourself back up when it feels a little low?
Yeah, I think, wow, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, I know.
And there's, I would say in terms of even just like, even in my database, right, there'll be some times where like things happen and like, maybe there's a client that maybe we had a regular relationship, but then maybe things change, right? And because that's life, right?
Yeah,
that happens with our high school relationships, our college relationships, and so you kind of have to allow people the grace for that.
Yeah.
And I think really just one for me, my faith is at the corner of, or at the cornerstone of everything that I do. And just kind of, I try to, in an imperfect way, I try to have it permeate everything that I do.
Yeah.
And I think it's just understanding that, number one, being gracious with people and understanding that like their journey is their journey. And again, as long as I am being a light and serving the people God puts in front of me to serve, the reality of the situation is, and even mathematically, right, I don't have to have everybody, right? And
sure.
and really,
it's unrealistic to think that you will.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And it's not, and so I think when you understand that, by the way, this may be a whole other podcast for something else, but when you understand that financially and you have preparation and you have margin, you're kind of going back to what I said when I initially got into the business where I was living for $80 a month. Mm-hmm. Like when you're able to not be stressed about the financial piece of it as well too, you're able to kind of ride the highs and the lows, and you're able to and you're able to maybe do some other things to stabilize that cash flow. Sure. That also brings you a little bit more peace. And and again, it's always going to be, every day is always different and it's always a challenge. That's what I love about this business. But I think when you just understand, like, listen, my job is to plant seeds, and the harvest will come in due time. And again, there's a verse in the Bible, I believe it's Galatians 6:9, but it basically talks about like never grow weary in doing good, and in time you will reap a harvest, right? But the whole thing is like, don't grow weary of doing good, right? And so that doesn't mean to get the result that you want. That doesn't mean that like it will all go perfect for you. No, it means be persistent and consistent in doing good. And if you do that, the harvest will come when it is supposed to come. And I think if you understand that, if you prepare for that, that enables you to play the long game, or as I like to say, selling crockpots, not microwaves.
Yeah,
right? So.
Yeah. Andy, I love that. And I think going back to, because sometimes when you are feeling frustrated, you are feeling down, you're feeling low, making the time, that's self-care, to make the time to keep that in front of you and to spend time in that every day. And so if it's easy to forget if we don't keep that in front of us. And so whether that is like, a gratitude journal for me is my thing, or whether you're reading, whether you're practicing in some way, whether you're going to church every week, whatever that is, but finding that self-care that works for you to keep that in front of you. And Andy, I love, like when we talk about frustration, you immediately went back to serving people and being the light in people's eyes. One thing that I love that you said was, people are on their own journey. It's not personal. It's not personal to you. So many people, I feel like they carry that, or they identify with that somehow, or whatever. And it's like, that's not yours to carry.
That's not, no.
Don't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. No. And have the grace with other people and yourself with that. Right. And then, by the way, and then your job is to, instead of being down in the dumps about it, hey, go out and see who else you can serve. There's 8 billion people on this planet, right? There's over 1 million people in the metro Indy area. There's tons of people that need what you offer, not just professionally, but personally as well too. So go do good on those people. If you go do good on those people, all the other stuff kind of has a way of working itself out.
It does. I completely agree with you. Man, I have loved this
Me
conversation.
Too, thank you.
Man, this has been great. Andy, I want to close by, there's something really cool that you host. It's called American Dream Television.
American Dream TV. They started it, basically, American TV,
Okay. But you are like selling Indianapolis. So how can people, like, what is that? Like, real quick, what is that, and how do people tune into that?
Absolutely. So American Dream TV, they're a network. They actually do more content than HGTV. Actually, a lot of people don't know that.
Okay.
So it's pretty amazing the stuff that they do. But they have a show in, I think it's like 70 markets in the United States right now, selling Kansas City, selling Sacramento, selling Pittsburgh, whatever.
I've seen selling Tampa.
Since you see, yes, you have that. And so selling Indianapolis is one they started about 3 years ago. I was one of the original hosts. I actually am, I think I'm the only original host that's still left. But basically what they'll do is there's different realtors or sometimes lenders as well too that will just go around different communities and highlight organizations or real estate or businesses. And it's something that I've done to kind of even give back.
Yeah.
I don't get paid to do it, but it's just a way for me to kind of share a lot of cool, unique businesses or organizations.
Probably a lot of local businesses.
Absolutely. Since I've started, some of the ones that I've hosted over the years, I won't say all of them, but like Hub and Spoke was the first one. That we did. Run 317. What was an event that we did? We actually just did one last month with the Nickel Plate Heritage Railroad in Noblesville.
Such a cool area too. Yeah.
It's just been, and one of the reasons why I did it was, it's another way to be a light, right? To provide value and to have people just kind of learn more about where different places where we live and some of the great people and the organizations. But you can see it on my YouTube channel, but really more importantly than that, because hey, my YouTube channel, I mean, we're growing it, but we're the little engine that could right now, right?
Yeah,
right? But
I get that.
That's exactly right. But more importantly though, the show airs monthly on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV, and then on Tubi as well too, a little bit down the line. So
cool.
Between those platforms, that's like 150 million subscribers or users.
Wow.
And so I love if you or anybody out there watching would know any cool organizations, businesses, real estate that we could feature, I would love to do that just to kind of show off the great place where we live.
It's one of the things I say is it's really cool to be a tourist in your own city.
Yes.
And that's a great way to experience, because like the Nickel Plate District and the railroad that they have, I've seen that in magazines, I've seen it online. I was like, oh my God, to like celebrate, for example, my niece or my nephew's birthday, it would be so cool to do that. But I hear about that from here. It's like being a tourist.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
That's exactly right. There's so many wonderful things, and this is true in business and in life, right? There's so many wonderful things that are going on. I talked about acres of diamonds right underneath our feet, right? Yeah. And if we could just open our eyes a little bit, be a light, kind of show off the good stuff. That's what life, that's what business is all about, right? Yeah. I think when you do that and you take care of people like that, it's only a good way to run a business. It's a good way to run a life, right?
Completely agree. And I think that as we take care of ourselves and we're happier, our businesses tend to reflect that as well.
Amen. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So,
man, Andy, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
You know what? I'm going to take you up on that. I'm going to have you back sometime. We're going to talk about that financial piece, the financial security. Money does not buy happiness by any means, but security, there's a place for that.
Absolutely. Well, and as just maybe a tease for that, I support 9 people, right? Me and my wife and my 7 children. And so I really just kind of, when I got into real estate with the low risk idea, living on $80 a month, I really kind of tried to build my whole financial situation through my business kind of on those kind of low risk kind of tenets and how you can play the long game on that.
Man, that's great. That's going to be a great episode. Yeah. So stay tuned. We'll get that scheduled out too.
Love to do that. All
right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Lasting Business Solutions podcast. I'm Renee Lucas, your host. Andy, again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.